Hiya John, well done on the session. Hope you found it helpful. Just going to run through a couple of things now that we discussed from the session. As we were saying, there's some really good striking there in the session, and obviously a very accomplished golfer. As you said, consistency was a bit of an issue. Okay, now posture for me is not too bad. We did discuss sort of getting a little bit more kind of dynamic with that posture, sort of pushing those hips backwards a little bit. But the main issue for me was sort of in this takeaway now. As the club went back, you can see now it's been whipped a little bit, we call it, in the inside. So the club head at this point now, when it's sort of parallel to the ground, has got very much behind you. And as a result now starts getting a little bit too sort of deep in the back. So now, if you were to come back on this angle, your path into the goal would be quite acute from the inside. And you'd get quite a big hook or a big block out to the right. So what you end up doing now is you start lifting your arms up. In the process of lifting, now you start coming over the top a little bit. So the club now is coming down quite steep into the golf ball. Now, as we said, with a sort of 9, 8, maybe even a 7 iron, you're going to de-loft that golf club and it's going to go quite a long way. And you'll be okay to hit those clubs because there's plenty of loft within those clubs to use. So you'll find they go a long way and you're actually okay. But as the clubs get longer and the loft on the golf club gets less, because you're de-lofting it, there's not enough loft to play with. And again, every now and then, as the club would go on the inside, you'd pop it back onto a decent position and actually get back on a good angle. But having the club swing back kind of on this angle and then that angle, as we come back down, as you can see, it's just too many variables there that kind of are going to lead to some inconsistencies, obviously, during a round of golf as you change physically, both from being a little bit stiff at the start of the round to warming up during the middle of the round to then getting tired toward the end. All these things are going to contribute towards that club coming back down on a different position, added to the fact that obviously on a golf course you've got the variance of different clubs you're going to use and different lies, different slopes, etc. So for me, it's about sort of feeling in this takeaway now, trying to work this club back. We can see here now doing some drills, taking that club back on a nice straight path. Now, as we said, we don't want the golf club to go too far inside and get into this position. We'll see here now on the left hand side at this point here with the club heads to inside. However, the arm position here, this structure is actually pretty good. What we do now is we just change the club from that yellow line behind you and put it more in front of you. That's done by more so with the forearms and the hands just controlling where the club is. What we don't want you to do is move the hands from here and just push them out away from the target to get the golf club now in a better position. So don't start pushing the arms away. It's changing the direction. Effectively, your hands point or your thumbs point. So if we look at this one on the right hand side, you do a good job there now of keeping the club kind of in front of you. The arms are still in a good position and the club is nicely in front as it goes back. We don't want that club to get too far, we call behind the hand. So it's practicing that movement. And again, it took a bit of practice to do it, even when it was doing slowly. In your practice, do this movement as much as you can to try and sort of feel that movement. When it comes to hitting the golf ball, we just go to hit it. And what we would probably expect is to have some element of in between where you want to be and where you were. So if you can see on that left hand one, your club would get somewhere around here on the takeaway. The red line now will sort of showcase where the club was going in practice. And then when the swing actually takes place, we'd hope the club to be somewhere in between those two, which as we can see here now, it's done that, okay? So the club started working back now. It's not quite so flat. Now, from here, obviously, there's going to be some instinct for you to want to bring that golf club back down and go over the top. But because you didn't have to go over the top on this one, you can see the arms now working up. Hands are kind of in front of your chest as you come back down. It's in a fairly similar position. There's not so much change of direction. That is the key thing for me there, John, is reducing the amount of change of direction that your club was having. So when the club comes back down, comes back nicely on the inside, good turn to the golf ball, get a bit of launch there with that golf club, say with a 7 or 8 iron. But your club head speed, which again is very high, you're going to want to be looking for somewhere around that sort of 19-20 degree launch angle to get that ball up in the air. Once you start getting into the mid-teens, it's just coming out too low and too far. And as daft as it may sound, the ball can go too far with a 7 or 8. And if you're anticipating an 8 iron to go 150, 155, and it jumps on you and goes 170, you're going to find some trouble behind the back of the green on occasion. So work on that takeaway. Any questions, please feel free to ask. If you want to do some practice and sort of send some videos over to let me see how we're doing, feel free to do that. And like I say, just think about this takeaway movement in your practice swing. This is the thing that you'll be thinking about all the time now. Get this dialed in so it becomes more and more kind of natural, so you can do it almost without any thought at all. As we said, we can do some work up against a wall there. So if the club does go too far behind you in the takeaway, you'll just dink the wall, practice this so it becomes a more muscle memory, and then probably next session we'll look at the transition into the downswing, trying to bring that golf club down on a slightly more into out path rather than going too far over the top. So hope that all makes sense. Any questions, I say, please feel free to give me a shout, and I'll catch up with you soon. Cheers, John.